The best regular season team in basketball just lost twice at home to open the NBA Finals. 62 wins, home court all the way through, and they're going to New York down 2-0, having never led in the series for more than a few minutes. So I want to ask the uncomfortable question: is San Antonio's season statistically already over? Because the phrase down 0-2 gets thrown around like it's a rough patch. It isn't. In the finals specifically, it's closer to a death sentence, and the numbers behind it are brutal. So let's build the case file on exactly how deep this hole is, and whether anyone has ever climbed out. This is Game is Culture. Real quick before we dig in, if you like breakdowns that actually show the math instead of just yelling takes at you, go hit subscribe. It's free and it genuinely helps, so click it. First, understand who's actually in this hole. This is no Cinderella. San Antonio went 62-20 this season. That's the best record in the entire league. Not a hot team that snuck into June. The #1 overall seed. The team Vegas and the models both favored to win the whole thing. When you picture who's supposed to be comfortable right now, it's them. And it gets worse because of where these two losses happened. At home, San Antonio went 32-8 this year, an 80% win rate inside their own building. The Frost Bank Center was one of the toughest tickets in basketball. They were supposed to bank the first 2 games here and steal the series before it ever left Texas. Instead, they dropped both. At home. The fortress that lost 8 times in 6 months has now lost twice in 5 days on the biggest stage it's ever hosted. That's the first gut punch. You don't just lose the games, you lose the entire premise your series was built on, which was protect home court. Now the part that should give San Antonio fans a sliver of hope and a lot of pain. These were not blowouts. Game 1 went to New York by 10. Game 2 by a single point. Add them up and San Antonio has lost this series by a grand total of 11 points across 2 games. They were a few possessions, 1 clean inbound, 1 made jumper away from leading this series 2-0 themselves. And that's the cruelty of an 0-2 like this one. It would almost be easier if they'd been run off the floor. Then you could say you were outclassed and adjust. But losing by 11 combined means you were right there twice and still found a way to come up empty. The margin says you belong. The scoreboard says you're losing anyway. So here's the number that defines the whole series now. Historically, teams that take a 2-0 lead in the NBA Finals go on to win the series around 9 times out of 10. I want to be careful here because that's a historical reference, not a stat you can compute mid-series. But the pattern is decades deep. A 2-0 Finals lead has almost always been the ball game. Quick interruption, because the next stretch is the whole ball game for San Antonio. Hit subscribe if you're enjoying this. I'm not going to beg, but I am going to ask, so hit it, and I'll wait. And the road ahead is exactly as hard as that number suggests. The series now shifts to New York for Game 3 and Game 4, so San Antonio has to go into one of the loudest buildings in sports, down 0-2, and win at least once just to keep breathing, then essentially win 4 of the next 5, against a team that just proved it can win the ugly, one-possession games. Now the honest case for hope, because there is one. Start with the obvious. They have the best player in the series. Wembanyama just went for 29, 9, and 4 blocks and nearly stole Game 2 single-handedly. A team with the best player alive, losing by a combined 11, is not a team that's being dominated. It's a team that hasn't closed. And closing is a skill you can find overnight in a way that talent never is. And their problems are the fixable kind. 16 turnovers in Game 2, a few too many settle for threes, a late game possession that got away. None of that is a talent gap, it's execution, and execution is what film and 2 days of practice exist to repair. If San Antonio cleans up the giveaways, this series looks very different very fast. But here's the case for why it might already be too late. They've said all of that before. After Game 1 it was, we were right there, we'll clean it up. Then they cleaned almost nothing up and lost Game 2 by 1 anyway. At some point, close losses stop being encouraging and start being a personality. New York keeps making the winning play, and San Antonio keeps making the one that loses. 2 games is a small sample. It's also a pattern. And the stakes go beyond this series. New York hasn't won a title since 1973, and they can smell it. A franchise with that kind of drought, up 2-0, with the best closer in the series, is not going to feel sorry for a young team. San Antonio's championship window is wide open for years. This specific title is slipping through it right now. So here's the whole thing in one frame. The best record in basketball, the best player in the series, 11 total points of margin, and a hole that history wins about 9 times in 10. San Antonio was supposed to be the wall everyone broke against. 2 games in, they're the ones with their backs against it. And don't forget who's doing this to them. New York won 53 games this year. San Antonio won 62. The team with 9 fewer wins is the one up 2-0. So this isn't a giant being toppled by another giant. It's the favorite getting out-executed by a team it was supposed to handle, which somehow makes the hole feel even deeper. And the history of this exact spot is almost mythological in how rare the escape is. Going back across the entire history of the finals, the number of teams that have fallen behind 2-0 and come back to win the title is a tiny handful. I'll flag that as a historical reference rather than a precise live number, but the direction is not in doubt. It has happened, but it sits among the rarest feats the sport offers. There's a matchup reason it keeps happening too. New York has spent 2 games throwing size and bodies at Wembanyama, and it helped pry 4 turnovers out of him tonight. So San Antonio's whole offense leans on a young star the Knicks are specifically built to crowd. Until Fox, Castle, and Harper consistently make New York pay for that attention, the Spurs are running their offense uphill, and the next step is the hardest one on the schedule. Game 3 is Monday in New York, in front of a fan base that hasn't tasted a title since 1973, and can feel this one coming. San Antonio has to walk in there, down 0-2, and win, just to make it a series again. Lose, and they're staring at a sweep. The margin for error didn't shrink tonight, it vanished. So I'll leave it with you. Is San Antonio cooked, or is a team this talented and this close exactly the kind that makes history nervous? The pattern says it's over. The margins say don't bet on it. Tell me which side you're on down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. We're in a race to 1,000 subscribers, so please, join the family.